It's been around 2 weeks since I covered the case, which was the dark web horror game Anamnesis. So far in those 2 weeks, we've been able to acquire some new information on the contents of the game, giving us answers to some questions we were stumped on, as well as something else that I forgot to point out in the last video. For those unaware, Anamnesis is a relatively unknown dark web horror game that contains several instances of gore, development, and possibly shit. This is only an update video. If you want the full breakdown of what we know about the game currently, please go to the description or the pinned comment below and watch the full documentary for yourself so you're up to speed on the current situation. As the thing I wanted to point out from the last video, I have reason to believe that the uploader of the two videos I discussed in the documentary are not only the same person, but the creator of the game, given their intro and talking style are incredibly similar to the in-game notes, even down to the font being used. That being said, onto the new information and updates. One of the first obstacles we had was the reversed audio. At first I thought it said, "Sorry, it is a medicine," but after talking to an online friend, he suspected it was actually saying, "Suicide is a medicine." And later, someone in my comments would stretch and slow it enough to where it actually says, "It is a medicine, suicide." This actually makes sense given the context of the game, where Samantha Blackwell, the person we play as, takes her own life at the beginning of the game, due to the pain she feels on the inside. I think what the creator is trying to compare suicide to is a painkiller to end all painkillers, if that makes any sense. Nevertheless, we need to move on to the more abrupt topic at hand. The second audio from the second video. I originally believed this to be some sort of torture video, including a minor, until someone in my comments who had actually viewed that part of the game clarified to me that the video actually included a woman who had been, well, immobilized via all of her limbs being cut off, and had a large part of her face split open. Now, this sounded awfully familiar to the Miss Pac-Man video, which I highly suggest you don't look up for your own mental sake. I had my doubts though, because one, the description was slightly different compared to the Miss Pac-Man video, in that all the woman's limbs in the supposed audio were missing, whereas in the Miss Pac-Man video she only had her hands severed. My other point, of course, was what sounded like a child in the background crying too. This, although, is a much weaker argument, given that supposedly in the Miss Pac-Man video, you can hear children screaming in the background. Now, my main argument for this being different is that the man in the video sounds like an English speaker, not a Spanish one. The Miss Pac-Man video originates from Guatemala. Certainly not any English-speaking country. Another thing I wanted to point out too was that, in the Miss Pac-Man video, the perpetrators of the attack were long gone, and if I remember correctly, the people recording it were either her neighbors or the police. Whereas in this audio, it sounds like the person there is the one inflicting the torture. Now, of course, I didn't want to compare the videos to find out, and neither did the commenter either from the looks of it. Now, what I do know is that for some reason the audio to the Miss Pac-Man video is actually available on YouTube, although I won't be providing a link to such material. And I reluctantly went to give it a listen to see if it sounded any similar to the audio in game, and if I'm being completely honest, it sounds nothing like the in-game audio at all. This only leaves room for more speculation as to who the woman in the audio is and who the man is carrying out the act in the audio. Now, the commenter also verified that he couldn't see any children in the video, luckily, although he agrees that there could have been some in the background watching the whole ordeal happen before them, which is honestly just upsetting, watching someone who is likely their own mother get butchered in front of them. It really makes you think what goes on in these people's heads to carry out such acts, knowing fully well that the individual they are doing these acts on is a parent with kids to look after, let alone doing the act in front of that person's kids. Now, there's one more thing the commenter mentioned, which was that while it's pretty obvious that most of the game voice lines are AI generated, Samantha's father's voice sounds genuinely real apparently, and could be the voice of the creator. I never got to a point where I heard the father's voice, but it now honestly seems like the newest topic of interest in the fact that if we can find out who voiced the father, we can possibly figure out who made this game. Now, those are the main updates. Regarding the game, there's actually another thing I wanted to add, and that was that two friends and I, who will remain anonymous, actually played the beginning of the game on a Discord call to see if we could find out anything more about the creator, or just any extra information we would have missed from the censors. We only agreed to play the beginning of the game to prevent us coming across any unwanted material later down the game, such as the vacuum seal, which is down way further in the game as it seems from the subreddit and the gameplay parts. When we opened the game, we made it to the title screen and we clicked around a little bit until we found a button relating to the creators. When we clicked on it, we got greeted with what looked like either someone's leg or the back of someone's head, who had been gashed open. Just completely cut open, with some art of someone's head drawn on top with X's covering their eyes. We were taken aback a bit from the discovery, but laughed nervously from the fact that the art sort of resembled Kim Jong-un of all people. Nevertheless, we pressed play, and when through the opening cuts, sorry, I'm stuttering, but when we went through the opening cutscene about Samantha taking her own life, we got flashed with images of homicide photos, likely relating to the fact she was a killer. What really stood out was that in all these homicide photos, all the victims were naked, although it was often hard to tell how they died given the sheer amount of blood present in the photos. Once we got to the suicide of Samantha, it showed a video of a woman hanging herself, which watching it was absolutely unsettling and sad. What disturbed us the most was how the woman swung around the room after dying. Playing the game was near impossible as it was incredibly buggy and not much happened until we got to Samantha's workroom, where we got to see the quote-unquote red room video. It's just 3 still images. The first is a man tied up, the second is his severed arms, and the third is his severed head, with the generic chainsaw and scream stock sound in the background. By this point we had enough of the game and deleted it due to how incredibly buggy it was, leading us to having us to repeat some parts due to just us glitching out of the map repeatedly. I'm sure it probably wasn't the outcome you wanted, but we had honestly just had enough because of how genuinely unplayable the game was. It just felt like we just had to keep restarting it and going through those images over and over again, just to glitch out at around the same point. Now that that's out of the way, that concludes this short update video regarding the game and its contents. I'm hoping soon enough we'll have more info on the game as well as some possible answers as to who the creator is. I hope you guys stay safe on the internet and not go looking for things like this. Remember to stay safe, God bless you, and I'll see you another time.